Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again tonight for the last in our series on macrame. This one we're going to be talking about fringe and finishing. For those of you who are wondering why it's at a weird time, we have a lot going on this October and we had a scheduled program at 6 and it just kind of ran over a little bit, so we just had to stagger some stuff up. But at any rate, here I am, here we are, we're going to talk about some knots and some macrame. So without much further ado than that, let's go ahead and get the video started so you guys can see how to finish up your macrame projects. Before I do that, you should have gotten or will be getting, if you have registered for this class, a phone call from the Rawlings Circulation Department with some kits to be picked up. Those are the bonus fringe kits that I have been talking about putting out for you guys, the supplementary ones. When I did this project, I realized that the fringe wasn't very full with the thread that I had given you guys to start with. So the kits have some more thread in them for you guys to make your fringe a little bit bigger. So I'll demonstrate that. And I'll just give you a sneak peek on a different macrame project I'm working on. Please feel free to drop a comment in the section if you think that other macrame was really cool and you'd like to have me show you how to do it sometime. All right, so moving on from here, let's go ahead and get started on our video so we can learn how to finish our macrame projects. Hey everyone, welcome back to our final creative aging project on macrame today, guys. We are reaching the end of our road macrame wise. Today we're going to talk about how to finish up your project. You should be receiving a phone call, if you haven't already, relatively shortly. If you've registered for this class, I've sent out some extra cord in another little kit, and that will help kind of fill up the edges of your fringe should you choose to not have it look like that. But if you didn't get that, that's okay. Wait for the phone call. There's kits for everybody who registered and received a kit to begin with. All right, so when we left off, we had just done all of these square knots, but we hadn't tied our strings to the edge here. So what I want to show you that I did was each one of these fellows that came out of this square knot that was extra, I just tied him in just an overhand knot. So we can look at that here. Let's see if I can finagle this without it being too fuzzy. But anyway, it's just like a regular old knot that you normally would do here. Just a over under, nothing fancy, just to keep them taut and so that you could see the pattern. So I did that with every extra string that was hanging down, and now they're here tied on the edges. So the way that we're going to make it look a bit fuller is we're going to start kind of here in the middle. Now I did not cut enough to do the whole thing, mostly just for time purposes, but you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So spread yourself a bit of a gap, and this is the very first middle knot there. I'm going to take an extra one and I'm going to double it over just like we did for the top up here. We're going to do another lark's head knot. Now looking at this, I just realized I have this upside down. So give me 1 second. Let me flip this over. The reason I knew it was upside down was because I want the bumps of the lark's head knot to be up. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that. So double it over so that there's that loop. Put the loop here. Take your strings and then just loop it through again. Maybe if I could do this today, that'd be fantastic. I've mentioned, I think, that I, for some reason, really struggle with lefts and rights and knots. And I don't know why. I also really don't know why I chose to do it, because look, I put it on backwards. Let's try that again. It worked real great in my head. So the loop was going to need to be at the bottom, and your yarn is going to have to go through that loop so that you get the nice little bump there from the lark's head knot. And then we can pull these two over, the next two strands to that. And then what we're gonna do, and this is pretty fun, is we're just gonna tie each one of these fellows in just another little overhand knot. So just tie it up, bink, just like that. And we're just gonna tie them to each other, and that's all we're gonna do. And that is just to secure it all in. So there we go. There's the first one added. And we'll go ahead and do that with, like I said, the second set of string. So I've given you guys, I believe, 10 extra pieces, which may not be quite enough to poof it up all the way around the edges, but I don't know if you really need to. So I'm going to actually push those two in there and then add the next set here. So push that fellow in there, and then we'll take that guy and that guy. And that guy and that guy, and knot it again. This is, like I said, just again, real simple little overhand knot. So that is one side done there, and so we'll add another extra loop here. So slid that down. That's what I want. And add this fella in here. There he goes. So then we're going to tie these two together. Shazam. Shazam. And you can really kind of add as many as you want. Here we're going to just end up with a relatively just real simple, easy kind of finish to it. But what I would almost recommend doing as you look at this is then, and just to demonstrate, you could tie another square knot like we did up here on these guys down here. And that would be a really cool finishing technique. That's totally up to you. I think it'd look pretty cool if you wanted to do it. If not, though, and you're just kind of over knots, which I totally and completely understand, you don't need to. There's no rule here that says you have to do that. Just make it look like something that you think is really good. After all, so then we'll tie these guys together. And the next one down. Tie them together. And that's going to make this nice and taut there in the middle too. Like I said, at this point, you can kind of do any sort of finishing you'd like. I would recommend almost, I think, putting that square knot there. Like I said, again, it's up to you. It'll hang nicely no matter what you do. So once you're done putting all of these in, and I'll do one more, and then we'll just sort of discuss the finishing touches. Oops, I do that all the time. I gotta come down first. Yep. Got excited, got a little carried away. What was I gonna say? So when we get to the end, you'll be able to see, you can put as many fringes on it as you would like, but we'll just trim it up at the bottom. And so when we trim it up, you can have the option to trim it across just flat, which is probably the simplest way to do it. But I think if we're wanting to talk about aesthetics, it's a really cool way to make it like a V, like the rest of the knots there at the top. And you can also, again, if it ends up being your jam, make those square knots here down here at the bottom too. Let them lay all neat and flat, and then trim it in a V, which I think will be really pretty. So if we push the rest of these guys down, I think it'll look pretty all right at this point. Keep it nice and tight just for demo purposes, but you would want to finish filling those up on your own. So now, pull this guy out so you can kind of see. We have all of these now fringe strands kind of down here. And if you comb them to let them go straight, I'm going to cut this shorter than I normally would. Normally I would cut this at about 18 inches. I think that's a really nice length, but because you won't be able to see when I cut things at 18 inches, I'm going to cut it a bit shorter. So what you'll want is just a really nice sharp set of shears. And push this up a smidge. And to cut it at an angle, make sure you know where your center line is. So my center line is right here. And I'm going to put that line on my board. Right down my center line. And it helps to have a ruler or a board or something like that when you're doing this particular cut. See, look, I just screwed myself up. There we go. Because then you can kind of see, I'm going to cut these starting right where my finger is, going up 2 inches at an angle. So each one of these squares is inches on my board. And I'm going to go up to this gray square right here. So just going to trim them up. Does not have to be perfect. You can always give it a haircut later. And we'll do that on the other side. When this hangs, it'll hang at an angle. It'll hang with the fringe angling down, which is hard to do without lifting it up, but I don't really have any cool place to display it. But at any rate, you can do that. Another way that you could finish it would be if you had some beads lying around, rather than cutting it at an angle or trying to fray the fringe. You could open your package of beads, make sure everything's nice and straight where you want it at the bottom, and then tie your beads on. I would recommend a knot, just an overhand knot at the bottom, throw it in the bead, overhand knot at the top. That is our beginning Not Your 1970s macrame. I was going to show you one that I'm working on right now that I think that if we have interest in, I will do a class on this later, not this time. This is a different weaving version, and I just wanted to show it to you because I thought it was really pretty, and I really like how it's turning out. So here we go. This is another one that I've done, and I'm actually going to try to lift up the camera here so that you guys can see a bit more what this fellow looks like. I'm pretty pleased with this one. I like it a lot. It's just a really simple twisting from those lark's head knots down to where the fringe is. I'm pretty happy with it. If you guys are super interested in doing this particular one as a project at some point, drop me a comment on the video and I will definitely do that. But until then, I think that's all for our macrame this time around. So I'll sign off, and until I get to see you again, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep making, everybody. Have a great day. Bye. Hey, everyone. All right. That was the absolute last of the 1970s, not your 1970s macrame classes, unless you would like to learn how to make that last piece of macrame I showed you. So please do either drop a comment or send me an email, sharon.rice@puebblolibrary.org, if that particular project really is making you excited. I think that's it for now. For those of you who maybe haven't registered yet, I have a surprise creative aging class next week. It's the stamping class, and it's the Scaredy Cat stamping class. There are still lots and lots of spots open, so please go to puebblolibrary.org and click on the calendar of events, and then click on next Wednesday to register for that. And we'll send your kits out the same way that we always send the kits out, so wait for the phone call to get your kit and get it scheduled. We will always call you. Sometimes I just get the kits a little bit late. So don't worry. If you don't hear from us, that means they're not ready. But anyway, it was really amazing to get to spend this evening with you guys. I can't wait till I can get to see you again, but who knows when that will be. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep on making. Have a wonderful evening.